Okay, when you think about a game-ending injury, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably a torn ACL, a bad concussion, the stuff we see happen on the field all the time. But what if one of the scariest threats is something we almost never even talk about? Today, we're diving into a really shocking connection: strokes happening to elite athletes. Yeah, let's be real. The word stroke immediately makes you think of older people, right? Maybe someone with a long history of health problems. It's a risk we just automatically connect with aging. You're definitely not picturing a 20-year-old who's in the absolute best shape of their life, someone whose entire job is to be physically fit. It doesn't add up. But that idea is a total myth, and honestly, it's a pretty dangerous one. So we're about to completely shatter that perception, because the truth is something that every athlete, every coach, and every parent really needs to hear. So get this, a huge review looking at data stretching back 4 decades found 39 confirmed cases of stroke in elite athletes. Now I know 39 might not sound like a massive number, but hold on. The fact that it's happening at all, that's the real headline here. And this is where it gets even more wild. In the year 2020 alone, just 1 year, there were 9 documented cases in athletes who were under 40 years old. So this isn't some old historical thing. It's a real risk, right now. So the obvious question is, how? How on earth does a person in peak physical condition have a brain attack? Well, the answer is hiding in the unique, sudden risks that come with playing high-level sports. And when you look at the breakdown, a pretty clear pattern starts to emerge. Of those 39 cases, nearly a third of them happened in American football. That's like a giant flashing neon sign pointing right at high-impact trauma as a huge piece of the puzzle. Okay, before we go any deeper, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. A stroke is basically a brain attack. For some reason, the blood flow to a part of the brain gets stopped, and without that oxygen-rich blood, the brain cells start to die in just a matter of minutes. Flash. That force can be so strong that it actually tears the delicate inner lining of an artery that's feeding blood to the brain. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. We talk all the time about concussions, which is like shaking the brain around inside the skull, but this is different. This is like breaking the pipes that supply the brain with fuel. When that lining tears, the body tries to fix it by forming a blood clot. But if that clot breaks loose, it can travel straight up to the brain, get stuck, and cut off the blood flow. That's the stroke. And this is the really crucial difference. For most people, stroke risk is chronic. It builds up slowly over years from things like high blood pressure, cholesterol, or smoking. But for athletes, the risk is acute. It can come from one single traumatic moment on the field. The source also points out that it can come from the chemical stress of things like stimulant abuse, which can spike blood pressure and damage blood vessels in an instant. So knowing the risk is there is one thing, but knowing what to do about it, that's everything. Because when a stroke is happening, every single second counts. So let's run through the emergency playbook. The most powerful tool you have is simply awareness. And there's a super simple acronym to help you spot a stroke: FAST. Honestly, every coach, every parent, every single teammate should have this memorized. Let's break it down really quick. F is for face. Ask the person to smile. Does one side of their face droop down? A is for arms. Ask them to raise both arms. Does one arm drift downward? S is for speech. Have them repeat a simple sentence. Is their speech all slurred or strange? And the most important one, T is for time. If you see any of these signs, it's time to call 911. Immediately. Don't wait.
If you think someone might be having a stroke, conduct a fast check. F stands for face. Ask the person to smile. Does the person's face look uneven, or is there drooping or weakness on one side? A is for arms. Ask the person to raise both arms in front. Does one arm drift downward or appear to be weak? S means speech. Ask the person to repeat a simple sentence, such as, "The sky is blue." Does the person have trouble speaking, or are the words slurred? T equals time. If the person has trouble performing any of these actions or shows any other signs and symptoms of a stroke, note the time that the signs and symptoms started and call 911 or the designated emergency number immediately. When a person is having a stroke, every minute counts, so act fast.
So here it is, your first aid playbook. Step 1, call 911. Don't even think twice. Step 2, note the time. When did the symptoms first start? This is critical information for the doctors. Step 3, monitor and reassure them. Just keep them as calm as possible until help arrives. And step 4, if they seem to be having trouble swallowing, gently roll them onto their side. This is called the recovery position, and it just helps keep their airway clear. Now, I know this is a heavy topic, but it's not all doom and gloom. Not by a long shot. Acting fast can make a world of difference, and the stories of recovery are a huge part of this. You see, the damage from a stroke can often be stopped and sometimes even reversed, but only if there's an incredibly fast medical intervention. Every single step in that playbook we just talked about is designed to get that person to the right doctors in the absolute shortest amount of time. And we have some amazing real-world examples, like the Olympic legend Michael Johnson. He's a stroke survivor, and his story is just this incredible testament to the fact that recovery is possible. It really highlights why recognizing those signs and acting fast is the most powerful thing we can do.
I didn't know what was going on. Yeah, that's life. You just never know, what's going to happen. And the expectation, if you had asked me before, I would think if you're having a stroke, you probably know it when it's happening, but you don't. I stumbled. I had a lack of coordination in my left ankle, that I was feeling some tingling in my left arm. So my wife and I discussed it and decided, let's go to the emergency room just to be sure and see what's going on. The first thing they did was a CT scan, and they mentioned that it seems like maybe you had a stroke, but we're not seeing that. The next step was then to undergo an MRI. When I got out, tried to get off the table and try to get to the bed, I couldn't walk at all. I couldn't stand. My first question was, will I be able to recover? And the team of doctors said, that is the question that everyone has, and it's the right question, but unfortunately there's no specific answer for that. But when you can't move something, you want to know, is this my future? I was very fortunate there was no brain issues. When the therapist came to my room and get you up with this walker and ended up walking 200 meters or thereabouts, which was ironic given that I was the fastest man in the world at that distance. It probably took 10 minutes for me to cover that distance that day, but I wasn't discouraged because I was taking instruction from my therapist the same way I took instruction from my coach. And it's what made me return to my room and tell my wife, I'm confident I'm gonna make a full recovery. I was truly having to learn how to walk again. My motivation was phenomenal. My son is just going off to college, actually. I want to obviously be around for him and grandkids if I'm so lucky to have them, and I don't want any restrictions. I want to get back my quality of life. This was different. It was all of a sudden going into therapy and going into the gym every day, twice a day, with a real motivation. Nobody's clapping. There are no gold medals when I finish, of runs on the track or in the weight room. That's a greater motivation than winning an Olympic gold medal, to be honest. Now it's more of trying to make sure that I take the time to relax, even if I don't feel like I need to. Relaxation for me a lot of times is go do a workout. Just sit down, And I do that a lot more and meditate, and that's good for me. Being a stroke survivor is part of who I am and always will be. I'll never know what caused this stroke. All I can do is do all that I can to minimize my risk of a stroke and live my life.
And all of this brings us to a really big final thought. We screen athletes for all kinds of things, from heart conditions to weak ligaments. But now that we know about this specific risk, shouldn't we be doing more? Should sports programs start screening athletes for hidden vascular issues that could turn a routine hit into a life-altering event? It's a critical question to think about as we try to make sports safer for everyone.